Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today to learn about and discuss a very exciting program that the New York City Housing Authority is undertaking. My name is Ron Reisman, and I'm a solar ombudsman for Sustainable CUNY of the University of New York, which is supporting NYCHA on developing and implementing the Accelerating Community Empowered Shared Solar, or ACCESSolar program. I'm joined today by my fellow CUNY Ombudsman, Bill Oberkehr, and Chris White, a program associate with NYCHA's Capital Project Sustainability Programs. Some of you may have participated in a webinar we conducted last July on this program when it was known as Public Purpose Shared Solar. However, there have been a number of significant changes to the program since then, involving more than just its name, so we're glad you joined us today for this update. The agenda for our presentation today is displayed here. First, we'll provide a quick overview of the New York City Housing Authority and the goals and benefits that ACCESSolar is expected to bring to NYCHA and to the city as a whole. Then we'll explain the application process and walk you through NYCHA's application platform and CUNY's Shared Solar NYC Gateway. After that, we'll discuss the implementation process and the timeline for teams selected to be part of the first round of the ACCESSolar program. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. You'll see a dashboard like this in the upper right corner of your computer screen. You'll notice that regardless of whether you're using computer audio or calling in, your audio has been muted. We'll be taking questions at the end of this presentation, but we ask you to please submit them in writing. You can do that by clicking on the questions option on the dashboard and then writing your question into the box below it. Clicking send will then transmit the question. Oops, went a little too far there. Clicking send will then transmit the question to Bill and Chris and myself. And time permitting, we'll try to answer as many questions as we can on the call. If there are questions we can't answer on the call, we'll post the answers with a recording of this webinar and send everyone a link. And if you think of questions after the webinar is over, you can email them to us at accessolar@nycha.nyc.gov. We'll repeat that address at the end of the webinar. Also, if anyone would like a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, you can download a PDF version of it from the handouts section of this webinar. If you're unable to do that, just write to us at the ACCESSolar email address and we will email you a copy. So right now, I'd like to introduce Chris White to offer an overview of the program.
Hi, this is Chris. And so, as you may know, ACCESSolar is part of NYCHA's plan to site 25 megawatts of solar on its property as part of the next generation NYCHA sustainability agenda. I should mention that as part of the sustainability agenda, NYCHA has signed on to HUD's Renew 300 program, which seeks to install 300 megawatts of renewable energy capacity on public and affordable housing buildings throughout the country. NYCHA's goal of installing 25 megawatts of renewable energy represents more than 8% of the national total. The ACCESSolar program is one half of NYCHA's strategy towards reaching the 25 megawatt goal. Many of NYCHA's larger roofs, larger individual buildings found on our campus developments, are being made available through a commercial solar program. The commercial solar program is run through a standard procurement process and seeks to earn lease revenue from those for large flat roofs on which they can build their systems. However, NYCHA has many roofs that are viable for solar development, but may not be the best fit for the commercial program. Roofs that are isolated single buildings, or campuses where each building is estimated to have 40 kilowatts or less of solar potential, or buildings that were not taken in previous rounds of commercial RFPs. These sites are perfect for a tailored program that lowers the barriers to apply and focuses on community benefits and building capacity for small solar developers. These roofs are perfect for ACCESSolar. NYCHA wants to expand solar business opportunities for these smaller developers and for minority women-owned business enterprises, and wants to build capacity for community organizations who are interested in bringing community solar to their neighborhoods. Second, the solar industry is one of the fastest growing sectors of the economy and now employs more than 260,000 workers nationwide and more than 8,000 in New York State. NYCHA is incorporating a workforce development component into its program that will encourage solar developers to train and hire NYCHA residents as installers or for other jobs within their organizations. The third goal of the program is to reduce the bills of NYCHA residents who pay their own electricity bills, as well as other low to moderate income New Yorkers. About 10,500 NYCHA residents are billed directly by Con Edison, and low-income households usually pay a disproportionate amount of their income towards utility bills as compared to more affluent customers. So we want this solar program to help those households benefit from lower-cost solar energy. So we'll start with just a very brief overview of how this ACCESSolar program will work. First off, we'll be accepting applications via an online platform on NYCHA's website. This platform went live on April 19th, and we'll be accepting applications until the close of business on Monday, July 2nd. In contrast to the commercial scale program, which is run through a more complicated procurement process, we're trying to keep this as simple as possible to make the program accessible to more applicants. Applicants will be asked to form teams that can develop solar on NYCHA's roofs while serving the surrounding community. After NYCHA evaluates the applicants, up to 5 teams will be selected and granted the exclusive right to develop a full design for some set of roofs. They'll sign a license agreement that allows for site visits to develop that design and full proposal, and you'll have up to a year to put it together. Once the team is ready, NYCHA and these teams will negotiate a lease agreement that will enable the team to install said solar panels in exchange for commitments on resident hiring, subscribing NYCHA residents and other LMI households, and possibly some modest lease payments. One important thing to emphasize is that all the developments developed under ACCESSolar will be community shared solar, also known as community distributed generation or solar gardens. These cannot be traditional power purchase agreements or remote net metered installations. The reason is that NYCHA buys its power from NYPA, the New York Power Authority, and NYPA rates are significantly lower than residential and commercial rates paid by private customers to Con Ed. The addressable costs are thus too low for solar installations to make any financial sense. Additionally, NYPA regulations forbid NYCHA from purchasing any power from community solar, so NYCHA unfortunately cannot serve as an anchor off-taker. In lieu of being able to buy this power, NYCHA is asking that developers prioritize populations served by NYCHA. While most of NYCHA developments are master metered, approximately 6% of NYCHA households, over 10,000 units, pay their own electric bills and could benefit from purchasing low-cost solar power. NYCHA also wants developers to prioritize other low and moderate income households, such as Section 8 voucher recipients and people who benefit from utility assistance programs. I'd now like to introduce Bill Oberker of Sustainable CUNY, who will talk about the concept of community shared solar and the Gateway website that CUNY recently rolled out to help promote it.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Ron. And hello, everyone. My name is Bill Oberker. I'm a solar ombudsman at Sustainable CUNY. I want to tell folks a little bit about how community solar works. As many on this webinar may know, before community solar was enabled in late 2015, seems like forever ago now, you had to either use remote net metering or net metering to be able to take advantage of the economic and environmental benefits of solar. That changed with the advent of community solar, which allows renters or other folks without control of the roof or folks with poor roof conditions to be able to subscribe to a large off-site solar installation. Regulations state that solar installation and its off-takers or subscribers all need to be within the 5 boroughs of the city, but as long as that condition is met, there's pretty open marketplace, and we are at the exciting forefront of that marketplace now. You can see in the illustration that the system owner or the developer in most cases is going to give a lease payment to the host site in exchange for giving the solar installation a place to live. The energy from that installation is going to go on Con Ed's utility grid, which generates bill credits that are then going to be essentially bought by New Yorkers. We call them subscribers, but they're essentially the customers to the community solar array, and they're going to pay that subscription payment back to the system owner or the developer. In most community solar models, and in particular in this program, one thing to note is that the developer will be responsible for the operations and maintenance of the system and will be expected to maintain ownership of the system throughout its useful life. just have a nice little illustration here, but scratch Bronx Elementary as it's a NYCHA customer, and as Chris said before, unfortunately, NYCHA customers are not allowed to subscribe to community solar. So just imagine this as the Smith family and the corner store. You can visualize this as those two entities purchasing a module or multiple modules of an array and being able to take the financial advantage for the credits that piece of the array is going to generate. Typically, those credits are going to be allocated in a percentage of total output of an array on a particular site. So in this particular case with ACCESSolar, since there may be kind of some amalgamated or aggregated community solar arrays, it's looking like each individual array on each individual structure will need to be filled separately with subscribers. Just want to briefly walk through the sign-up process or the application process for the ACCESSolar program. This is all available on the gateway. We have a few slides illustrating that coming up. But basically, if you go to sharedsolarnyc.org, you'll be able to find a link to ACCESSolar web form. If you have your team built, you've got your nonprofit community organization lined up, you've got your developer lined up, and you're ready to go, ready to join the program, you can fill out the form that's on the website together. The team must be in place ahead of submittal of the form. And there should be one primary contact or one principal contact representing the team just to make communications more efficient between the ACCESSolar team and the individual teams that are kind of implementing the program on the ground. As I said before, you can register at the Shared Solar NYC gateway, which is sharedsolarnyc.org, and we'll show you how that looks. So we just finished revamping this site. Some folks on the line, I think I got a peek at the attendance list. Some folks may be familiar with it from its last iteration. We just released version 2 with expanded functionality, and basically it conforms more to the reality of the community solar marketplace in New York City. But we are here to talk about the ACCESSolar portion of the website. Right there, you can see above the fold on the landing page, there's an ACCESSolar icon there. You can click that, and that will lead you into more information about the ACCESSolar program, and you'll get 3 choices here. You can learn more. Choose to do that if you'd like a little bit more background information. You can see where the ACCESSolar sites are. Those are the ones in yellow. We also have EDC's Brooklyn Army Terminal site there in blue for any developers on the line who may be interested in finding more about that RFP as well. Just a little bonus, but you can also take a look at all the ACCESSolar sites in yellow, and you'll see the New York Solar Map solar potential estimate for each one, and you'll see kind of where some of these bundles are on a map to help folks be able to visualize. And the other 2 icons that you see are the CBO nonprofit icon there all the way to the right. That is where you would want to be if you're a community board organization interested in participating in the ACCESSolar program. And then we have another form as well for the developers who are interested in the program in the middle, as you can see right there. So we'll be collecting some really basic information through the Shared Solar NYC gateway, and then we'll be taking that and taking a look at that for the teams. But I just want to give folks a feeling of the type of information that we'll be looking for through the form. As you can see, it's not a very heavy lift here. It's basic information. 2 important things that may be apart from what folks are used to seeing are we want to know whether the firm is an MWBE, so we have a simple yes or no there. And then we also are interested in kind of which areas in the city, which boroughs the firm would be interested in working in. I know a lot of developers have done and continue to do work in all 5 boroughs, and that is fantastic. So feel free to select all 5 if that's where you are. But if you have a bit smaller of a market, feel free to let the team know that as well. And then we have kind of a few, 75 words or less questions here that are just a little bit of general background about your experience as a firm, your interest in the ACCESSolar program, and basically your team up capabilities. What are your credentials to be able to take on a partnership with a nonprofit or community board organization? Do you have any experience along those lines, or do you have a particular interest in doing such a thing? Pretty similar look to the form for the community board organization or nonprofits. Just standard information. Again, the borough information might be a bit more relevant to CBOs or nonprofits. If you are a nonprofit that does work in all 5 boroughs, feel free to click all 5. If you are, however, a community board organization in one of the boroughs, it would be important to indicate which borough you are interested in working on the ACCESSolar program in. Same type of deal with the short text answers on the side, really just background information about whether you would want to target some specific communities within your borough or a specific piece of a borough or specific neighborhoods in multiple boroughs. The ACCESSolar team would like to know that. CUNY will review the profiles of the developers and nonprofits that register on the gateway and arrange the connections between those whose geographic preferences and skill sets are a match. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Chris, who will walk us through the application process for ACCESSolar.
Hi, thanks. Thanks, Bill. I just want to make one quick correction on that. I know it's a little confusing. It's community-based organizations, not community board organizations. So sorry about that. We're not actually involved with the community boards. It's community-based organizations. But anyway, moving on. Here you see NYCHA's ACCESSolar website, which you can go to at on.nyc.gov.accessolar. This page describes the program, tells you how to apply, and gives you links to all the resources you need. Let's take a look at first of the steps to apply. First, there's a link to the NYC Open Data Portal, which has a list of all the roofs that are available currently for ACCESSolar, along with some important information about these roofs, such as their development, their address, their roof condition, and their estimated solar capacity as determined by an analysis that CUNY ran last year. Once you've used that data to figure out which roofs you're interested in, you should download the linked site proposal form, which is an Excel document that includes some of the most important info on these roofs. Site proposal form has a space for you to fill out your contact info and a column in which you'll indicate those roofs that you're interested in developing. Once you've filled out the site proposal form, you can go to the linked online web form in which you'll enter the team's information and narrative answers and where you'll upload that filled out site proposal form. That's how you apply. Before we get to the application form itself, just want to point out some other information that NYCHA has on our ACCESSolar page. We have a link to the shared solar gateway for applicants. We also have a link to the gateway for potential subscribers and some key dates. Of particular importance is the links and resources at the bottom of the page. In addition to all the resources mentioned earlier, we have an FAQ that covers many questions you might have, and we have the full rules that explain the process in more official detail. The FAQ is a living document and will be updated based on questions that applicants submit to our dedicated email at accessolar@nycha.nyc.gov. As far as the full rules, one important thing to note is that NYCHA requires anyone who signs an agreement with the authority and does work on NYCHA property to have sufficient insurance. To that end, the rules include templates that spell out the insurance requirements NYCHA will have for required teams. There are 2 sets of insurance requirements, one for the license agreement, which covers site visits and design, and a more comprehensive set of requirements for the lease agreement that will be necessary to actually carry out construction. The lease agreement requirements may be negotiable, but applicants should expect to carry insurance substantially similar to what is stated here. So please make sure to review them before submitting. Here you can see the application forms that teams will use to apply for ACCESSolar. There are 3 sections: contact information, team information, and project description. So we'll walk through each of them. Contact information is pretty straightforward. We're asking the lead applicant to provide us with that information. In the second section, we're asking you to list all the other members of the team that you've put together and provide some basic background information. We're expecting that applicants will form teams to cover all of the many separate tasks that community solar, especially community solar with the specific goals of ACCESSolar requires. These include roles such as arranging financing, development and construction, subscriber management, customer outreach, and workforce development. For each other team member you've lined up, please give us the name of the organization and a contact person with some basic info, such as email and/or telephone. In particular, NYCHA strongly encourages, as we've mentioned before, a member with experience in solar development and another that's a community-based organization or a local nonprofit. Any type of team member can be the lead applicant. Below that large box, we have a couple other questions. We want to see if you've enrolled in the gateway to help find other team members. If anyone on the team is MWBE certified, please indicate that. And then we have several boxes asking what sort of experience team members have working with NYCHA, with solar power, or with public housing outside of New York City. The final section is the project description. First box is a space for teams to upload requested documents. We're specifically requesting two things in particular: the filled out site proposal form, as I've mentioned earlier, available as an Excel doc download on the main ACCESSolar site, and a resume for who will be the responsible party from each team member. Applicants may also choose to upload other supporting materials if they wish, such as brochures or letters of interest, but this is entirely optional. All these documents are uploaded with that same button, and please note that there's a maximum of 10 documents that the form can support per application. Below that, we have a few brief narrative questions asking for the team to explain their approach to project development, some previous projects, an explanation of the team's technical capacity, and an estimate of how soon after signing the license agreement that teams would be able to begin developing their designs and full proposals. I'd also like to highlight two other boxes here. We want to know how you expect to meet the community-oriented goals of ACCESSolar, such as LMI enrollment, NYCHA resident hiring, and consumer protections. We also want to know more about what role each team member will play in this project. While we want these teams to be as full as possible, we recognize that there may be some roles that might need to be filled after the application is sent in. This box, or the last one, is a good place to point out who you still need to get on board and how soon you might be able to do so. These answers don't need to be long. The form just technically has a 4,000 character count limit for each box, but we expect that most of these answers shouldn't need to be more than about 250 words or so. So now we'll just briefly recap the requirements to participate. As NYCHA wants to make sure these projects can be built in a timely fashion and can do so while fulfilling the program's community-oriented goals, it's strongly encouraged that applicants apply in teams that include a solar developer and a CBO or nonprofit. Teams members are encouraged to sign up in the Shared Solar Gateway to help fill out this team. And when filling out the application, please make sure to include the site proposal form indicating where you would be interested in building solar and resumes for each team member. Once the application period closes, NYCHA will put together an evaluation committee consisting of NYCHA staff, some trusted partners, and we'll include a NYCHA resident. This committee will look at these proposals over the course of July. Applicant teams may be asked to answer some questions by email and/or come in for interviews. NYCHA will then choose up to 5 teams, each of whom will be granted a separate area. These areas will be geographically based. It could end up being something along the lines of 1 team per borough, or it could be different, depending on who applies for what sites. We won't have multiple teams competing to develop the same site. This means that if you expressed interest in a lot of sites over the whole city, it's certainly possible that NYCHA will award you the chance to develop a proposal for some but not all of those sites. Once teams are selected, which we're expecting to do in August, they should be prepared to sign a license agreement granting them site access to begin developing the technical designs and the proposal. Now we'll talk a little bit about the implementation phase. Once teams sign that license agreement, they'll have up to 1 year to develop these designs, the proposal, and to develop the full proposal. The proposal will seek commitments on all these community-oriented goals, including hiring NYCHA residents, enrolling LMI households, and we'll want to see a contract template to make sure that those LMI households enjoy robust consumer protections. The design proportion of the proposal also will want some information to ensure that the solar panels won't impact our operations or our existing roof warranties. While raising revenue from NYCHA is not the main goal of this program, NYCHA will seek to negotiate a reasonable lease payment if the project's economics can support one, and will ask for a narrative explaining any proposed lease payment as part of the proposal. Once it's been accepted, NYCHA will negotiate a final lease agreement, which will enable you to install solar. Note that while you have 12 months to go through this process, NYCHA welcomes full proposals, full designs before that date. If you can put things together faster, great. One last thing that's important to mention about the ACCESSolar program and how it will work in the implementation phase is that NYCHA wants this program to help build capacity for community solar and solar on small multifamily buildings. It's not simply about getting panels on our roofs. To that end, during the implementation phase, we'll be holding collaborative workshops with the selected teams and our partners at Sustainable CUNY and ICF, a consulting firm that's also been providing us some assistance. These workshops will cover topics such as LMI outreach, consumer protection, and VEDR. Teams will be asked to attend these workshops and share knowledge. In addition, we're expecting to work with the Fund for Public Housing to conduct outreach to potential financing partners and/or anchor off-takers. Importantly, this is just the beginning for ACCESSolar. NYCHA is planning to conduct future rounds in the coming years as more roofs become available until we've reached our 25 megawatt goal. And here's the timeline for this round of the ACCESSolar program. As you can see, we opened up the application platform in April. List of sites was already up on NYC Open Data. You can see today's webinar, and applications will be accepted until close of business on Monday, July 2nd. Then July and August, we'll select up to 5 teams who will sign a license agreement to enable site visits. Teams will have up to a year to develop their full proposal, and NYCHA expects to negotiate and sign the final lease agreements with selected teams by the middle of 2019 so that solar can be permitted and installed. Now I'll turn it back to Ron for the Q&A.
Thank you, Chris. So there you have it, a complete overview and step-by-step process for team-ups and application submittal. What we'd like to do with the 15 minutes or so that we have remaining is answer your questions. Unfortunately, looking at my dashboard here, I don't see anybody who has asked a question. So that's either an indication of our having such a complete presentation that it left no question unanswered, or there's a technical glitch here with GoToWebinar, because I'm sure that people have some things that they'd like to ask us. So while we're waiting for those of you to formulate some questions and send them through the question box, we do have one here, and how do I expand this? Got it. Just bear with us a second here. Okay, so the question is, can you apply for an address that is not listed on the website? My company runs a program out of a NYCHA property and would like to apply. So the answer is that for the first round of ACCESSolar, we are limiting it to the 325 properties that are on the NYC Open Data list. I
can jump in and answer. We currently have about 325 roofs on 65 developments. A lot of these, and these are the only sites that we're offering for ACCESSolar right now. A lot of our roofs. One of the important things to note is a lot of our roofs need to be replaced, are planned on being replaced in the next 10, 15 years, and we really are prioritizing sites where we're not expecting to have any roof replacement or where there aren't other conflicts. And also there are some sites that might end up in the commercial solar program. So there are several reasons why we have these sites now, and we will have more sites in the future, but it's really just we've winnowed down to these are just the sites that we're able to offer.
Yeah, and just to put things in perspective, NYCHA has over 2,500 buildings throughout the city. And so, this is just sort of the tip of the iceberg. And while it may not be that every site will ultimately have solar on the roof, we do intend to have further rounds of both this program and the commercial solar program that Chris touched on earlier, which is more of a formal procurement process. Okay, so we have another question here that asks if there is any advantage to submitting applications early in that period, i.e. sooner rather than later, prior to July 2nd. The answer to that question is no. What we will do is we will wait until the deadline expires on July 2nd and then begin reviewing all the applications. So whether you send your application in tomorrow or you wait until July 1st, it will not give you an advantage over anybody else. Of course, if you can get things in sooner, that's great, but it's not going to put you a step ahead of someone who submitted their application the day after you did. That's what I see right now. If anybody else has something they'd like to ask, please put it up there. As we were saying before, NYCHA has over 2,500 rooftops throughout the city, 178,000 apartment units that houses more than 400,000 people. So you're looking at a population that if it stood by itself would be the 31st largest city in the United States. A little bit of trivia there for you. Another question came in as to who set the goals for the community shared solar project, and I'll turn that one over to Chris, since it was NYCHA that did, right?
Yeah, I guess I would just ask, by goals, do you mean like the 20? Like NYCHA has the 25 megawatt goal, which we developed along with CUNY back when we were developing the next generation sustainability agenda back in 2016. It was based on an analysis of our roofs, and we've set that goal, and we're going to be working over the next 7 to 10 years to meet and exceed that goal. As far as that's just the numerical goal. There are also the community-oriented goals that we want. This is just important. It's just important programmatically for NYCHA. We have many of our construction projects actually require contractors to hire NYCHA residents. This is not technically true for these sort of solar leases. However, it's really important for us to connect our residents to workforce opportunities. So we're honoring the spirit of that, and we're requiring that anyone who develops solar on our property hire NYCHA residents, and also that if we're using our roofs, we want to make sure that it's being used for the benefit of NYCHA residents or sort of people in similar situations as NYCHA residents. So we have these LMI enrollment goals. So that's where that comes from.
Okay, thanks. We'll wait another couple of minutes to see if there are any other questions that come through. As I said in the introduction, if you think of something later, if you wake up in the middle of the night and something hits you at 3 o'clock in the morning, run to your computer and type in the web address you see on your screen now, which is accesssolar@nycha.nyc.gov, because what we will do is we will take all the questions that have been asked during this webinar and anything that comes in over the next couple of days, and we will post those Q&A along with a recording of the webinar on our website, and we will send you a link to that recording. So this just came in, and it says, is the total scale of sites for development considered important in evaluating applications? Not quite sure what that means, total scale of sites. In other words, the number of sites that would be proposed for development. Chris, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I guess I guess it sounds to me like is asking like basically would it be important to apply for lots of sites, or would there be like a penalty for applying for too many or a penalty for applying for not that many? Is there a certain amount that we're looking for? And the answer is not really. I think we want to, we want to basically see what you think you're capable of developing, what you think you want to take on, sort of whatever community you're comfortable with, and we sort of, and like I said, we want to like get 5 teams covering as much of the city as we can. Like I said earlier, if you apply for lots of sites, you may end up being awarded some of them because we do want to have some diversity within the city. But that doesn't mean I would say it's whether you apply for lots or just for a few, that's fine. Anything is fine. Just apply for what you can, and whatever you choose is fine.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, as you did, that it should be the comfort level of the team that is applying, and that people shouldn't bite off more than they can chew, to use a terrible analogy. All right, we'll keep this open for another minute or so in case there's another question that comes in. And as I said, if you do think of something after we're done here, please do send it to us at accesssolar@nycha.nyc.gov. We will be answering all questions and posting those answers along with a recording of this webinar on the website. Question that just came in: will the jobs be non-union? Once again, I'll turn to Chris to answer that. Since
this is a lease project, this is not something where NYCHA is not paying the solar developers anything. That is not something, since it's a solar lease, that is not something that NYCHA is involved in. So that's not something that it's up to us to check. Okay. And we have one here. Will there be a timeline for construction to complete the projects once the projects are awarded? Chris, I think you covered that in one of your later slides. Yeah, we'll definitely, once you've we have the 12-month time frame to get the full proposal in and to work on negotiating the lease agreement. We're still hammering out some details on the lease agreement itself, but I think we would expect that that these projects would be developed within 12 months of signing the lease agreement. But like I said, it's the exact time frame. We'll be in communication with you, and we understand that things come up, but we would definitely want it to move along with reasonable speed. Okay. Another question that just came in regards the hiring and training of NYCHA residents, and asks whether it's mandatory or not mandatory or just preferred. It's not. I'll say it's not a legal requirement, but for this program, yes, it is. It is an important commitment, and we will insist that there be NYCHA residents hired for these projects. Okay. Yeah, I mean that is after all one of the goals that you mentioned at the very beginning of the program is to provide job training and job opportunities for the residents of the NYCHA developments. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be the developments on which these solar systems are situated, but as long as it's within the NYCHA universe. All right, I haven't seen any other questions come in, so since we are
just moments away from our allotted end. Oh, one last one here. Asks, how long will the lease agreement for looks like it got cut off, but it seems to be asking about the length of the lease agreement for the solar installer. Chris?
Yeah, we would expect that the leases would last for there would be a base 20-year term, and then they could be extended and then there would be a provision for extending it another 5 years, so up to 25 years.
All right, which is actually similar to the time period for the commercial solar program as well. All right. I think that does it. We're going to wrap it up. I'd like to thank my colleague Bill Obercare and Chris White from NYCHA. I'd like to thank all of you for listening and participating. Once again, if you do have questions that come up after we hang up here, please send them to us at accesssolar@nycha.nyc.gov. We hope you'll go and visit the Gateway website. If you're looking for a partner, we're happy to serve as a matchmaker and try to team you up. It's not Match.com, but it's sort of the solar equivalent to it. And if you already have your team in place, all the better, and you can start thinking about putting in your application. It's a good period of time still left, not till July 2nd is the deadline, but better sooner than later. So we look forward to having all of you participate and have all of you spread the word about this program to people you know. So thanks again for being part of this call, and we hope to see you soon. Bye now.